The presence of pain will create suffering, and it's suffering that motivates you.
Dave Asprey, someone who just did not think outside the box. He biohacked it, he optimized it, and probably added some ghee to it. Founder of Danger Coffee, father of biohacking. What I admire about him is not just how far he has gone, but how deep he's willing to go.
People will sometimes say, I don't want to let something go because anger is my fuel source. If I can spark anger in someone, that means I'm in charge of them.
We can start affecting change at the level of the body. Do you think the emotions the human experience, whether it's sadness or guilt or grief or joy, all of that has an effect on the biochemistry?
We know 100% that if you meditate, your biochemistry will change.
Right.
And we know that if you change your biochemistry, your perception of the world will change.
The more you know, the more the unknown grows. I am Jitesh Vaswani, your host, and together, let's take this journey beyond the known. So Dave, I would like to welcome you to our show with some of the gifts from our partners. And we know you love ghee, so we have the Golden Monkey ghee right there from Shrishi Tattva. And we have Ghee Sutra. It's a skincare collection from Shankara, and they wash the ghee 10,000 times manually.
I love that.
Yeah.
I've used it before. It works. And washed ghee is something that people in the US know nothing about.
Yeah.
But it has very unusual electrical properties. I got into the interactions of water and fats because of my old company, Bulletproof, before I started my new coffee company called Danger Coffee. So there's real science behind washing it that way. It's exactly a very different thing than most people would imagine.
Yeah, of course. One of the things they were mentioning to me is that's how the royal family used to do skincare back in India.
And 10,000 times washing is insane. Even 72 times creates unusual effects. So.
Right. So Dave, the world knows you as the father of biohacking, but I want to start with something simpler. What's the last thing that brought you peace?
The only thing that brings peace at the end of the day for me is true forgiveness. So that's the only thing.
Yeah. And I know that you have had your journey reaching to this state of peace, right? Like you started, you mentioned that I was watching some of your interviews. You mentioned that you were dealing with brain fog, a lot of mold issues.
I was 300 pounds.
You were 300 pounds. So how do you think that journey may or may not have been painful, but how does pain rewire a sense of purpose in our lives?
The presence of pain will create suffering. And it's suffering that motivates you because you realize that the suffering is your fault, whether or not the pain is there. And you can experience pain without experiencing suffering. So it's suffering is the trigger. Like, I just can't do this anymore. The reality is you can. It's the belief and the story around the pain that's really creating the motivation. People will sometimes say, I don't want to let something go because anger is my fuel source. But if anger drives you, it'll burn you up. It's a terrible fuel source, but it's a useful spark. It's just if I can spark anger in someone, that means I'm in charge of them. So the whole reason that I wrote Heavily Meditated, which isn't really a book on meditation. It's a book on all the different ways to access altered states.
Right.
So that you can change how your body responds and how your emotions respond to the world around you so you can have peace. That's the big understanding, that you're not as in charge of that as you think you are.
And when you mentioned that we can start affecting change at the level of the body, do you think the emotions the human experience, whether it's sadness or guilt or grief or joy, all of that has an effect on the biochemistry?
We know 100% that if you meditate, your biochemistry will change.
Right.
And we know that if you change your biochemistry, your perception of the world will change. That's weird. That means that if you're eating food that's not compatible with your biology, you could be anxious or depressed. And if you don't believe me, I have a challenge for you. Have 10 cups of espresso and then try to meditate.
Won't be able to do it.
And it kind of makes sense. Oh, you want to be in a high performance state of flow? Get really drunk and be hungover.
Yeah.
And actually your IQ will probably be 15 points lower.
Yeah.
So we know that our environment changes our biology, which changes our consciousness.
Right.
And we know that our consciousness can change our biology. A recent example of this is we like to tell ourselves stories about the world, and we just believe them to be facts, but they're all just hypotheses. And one of them is that the size of your muscle determines how strong you are, right? Well, we underestimated the strength of neural drive by 7 times because you can't really see neural drive. And this makes sense. You ever see those Shaolin monks? And they're doing a handstand on 2 fingers, but they don't have big bulging muscles. They're stronger than some of the bodybuilders. So is it useful to believe that someone with lots of muscles is strong? It's very useful. It's just not true. Because someone else may be stronger who doesn't have muscles, but it's a good model. Yeah. It turns out our bodies are so lazy. They're just trying to make models of the world around us. And one thing that your body does before you have a chance to think is it decides whether something is scary or not scary. And my model for consciousness runs on F words entirely, and fear is the biggest one. Yeah. So if at some point in your past, whether you want to say it was in this life or in a past life, it doesn't even matter. Your biology decided that when there's a certain combination of signals, it's not safe. Yes. So when that happens again, or maybe it's in a boardroom, maybe your wife says something to you and you don't know why it pushed a button, but it did because it's an unhealed button. You're going to get an emotion and you're going to tell yourself a story about the emotion to make it real. And the story is probably going to be, it's your fault. Yes. That's not real. Yeah. It's just a useful way of surviving. And my work is, let's not just survive. That's not a very good goal. It's kind of easy to survive, but it gets us stuck in the very basic stuff of life. What our bodies are really doing is fear. Is it scary? Then food. Can I eat it? And then the next F word, which is responsible for reproduction. Fertility is the one I was thinking of. You too, right? So all of this happens in microseconds. Right. And your auditory processing system only hears about this in 1/3 of a second. So your body's going, I have 1/3 of a second to decide if I should make him want to run away or eat it or hump its leg. And then you get the sensation and you, oh, wow, look at that. But it's totally not real. You could reprogram your body to give you a different signal about those things that's more reality-based, that's more peaceful, that's more nourished. And so you can turn fear into peace, and you can turn cravings into nourishment, and you can even turn lust into a sacred form of intimacy. Yeah, that really it creates altered states as important as breath work or anything else. Yeah. And when you do this, the energy that's left over in all life, whether you're a human or not, will flow into creating an ecosystem, to creating a community. So this is the friends F word. So in Heavily Meditated, I'm saying all of reality is processed through a lens of, do I need to kill it? Can I eat it? Can I hump it? If not, can I be friends with it and help it? And after that, your community becomes a source of nourishment for you as well, a source of energy. That's why community is so important. And if you do this right, your biology, you're somewhat healthy. So the energy wasn't wasted on fear, wasn't wasted on hunger that wasn't there to feed you. It wasn't wasted on lust. Instead, each of those became a source of power. And then you powerfully help your community. That helps you back even more. And so much energy is left at the end for the final F word, which is forgiveness, where you go back and you reset the fears. And the reason I felt called to write Heavily Meditated is that the process of going through and turning off a fear is different than what we normally learn in meditation. And I went all over the world in different lineages and learned from shamans and all sorts of things, including many years of doing art of living. Yeah. And it's, well, notice the feelings. The feelings will come through and then set them aside. This is very good advice. There's just one problem. I had other things to do, right? So what if I could find why my body keeps giving me those feelings? If I'm actually safe, but my body is telling me I'm unsafe, it's a bad program. Right?
Yeah, it's your biochemistry trying to trigger something inside of you.
I don't actually think it's biochemistry. It can be. So if there's inflammatory signaling molecules present, you'll feel more unease and more danger. Yeah. It's oftentimes electrical or even quantum. And I think most of it's quantum. Okay. Whatever the source of it is, like if it wasn't scary, but you felt fear, you wasted electricity and attention on the fear. So you could imagine that your hardware, your body, is like a big Labrador retriever. It comes in, eats your shoes, it pees on the couch, it humps your leg, and then it eats everything on the table and barks at you. Well, it's just doing what it was programmed to do, which is, was it scary? You kind of eat it, like all this stuff.
Yep.
Well, your operating system that keeps your meat alive, it's also known as your ego. It's an emergent phenomena that comes from mitochondrial behavior, ancient bacteria running the operating system of life. You can train the dog to be a service animal, and in 6 months, it'll sit there with a treat on its nose and it won't move until you allow it to. Do you want to have the service animal as your interface to reality, or do you want to have the dog that's humping someone's leg?
I would love to have the service animal.
Me too.
Yeah.
And that's the path. Breathwork is profoundly more effective than just meditating for most types of meditation. It's an accelerator for meditation, which is why it's become so incredibly popular. Meditation is good. Meditation plus breathwork is better. And there are other paths. There's tantra paths that are also, can you say better? It probably depends on your goals. It depends on who you are. Like, what are you called to do? And there are shamanic paths that involve where one lineage may say, well, don't do those. Well, for that lineage, you shouldn't do those. But if you're in the middle of the jungle with a shaman, you say, well, my people have done this for 5,000 years too. It's just a different path. For people in the West in particular who haven't had the opportunity to learn from multiple lineages the way I've been blessed to, Heavily Meditated is here as a guidebook. Because you're going to read it and say, that one, I feel called to that. Do that. And it's not the same answer for everyone. And this is maybe one of the big problems. I can tell you, walking around with fear, that's not going to serve you.
Of course.
And it's going to make you programmable. It's going to put other people in charge of you. And it's going to create, at best, guilt and at worst, shame. And it's going to waste your life energy. So you don't want to do that. But the path to getting out of that, there are many paths. I just wanted the paths that were the fastest with the least risk. But that doesn't give me the ability or the right to tell you, you have to do it this way. And the biggest gift in Heavily Meditated is I've been working on this problem for 25 years, hooking computers up to my head. And for the past 10 years, I've had more than 1,000 high-powered executives and entrepreneurs come into my neuroscience facility called 40 Years of Zen. And we measure their brainwaves. And I teach them how to truly and deeply forgive. We call it the reset process.
Yes. Talk more about the reset process, because I read about that in the book. I really liked a quote that you mentioned, that if you're walking with triggers, it's like you're walking with a loaded gun. And it's not anybody else's problem that you don't, blow up.
It's really rough. If you can be triggered, it means you are carrying a loaded gun.
Yes.
And even worse, someone else's fingers on the trigger.
Exactly.
That is not how to live your life.
Yeah.
And so some people really get this victim story. Well, I'm feeling this, so you have to do what I want.
Yeah.
Like, how is that going to end? Because then I'm going to feel something, which means you have to do what I want. And what I would like is for you to give me a foot massage or make me a pizza and give me all your money. And like, well, I'm not going to do that. Well, okay, then I'm not going to do what you want. So let's own our own BS just at the deepest possible level and not believe those stories about reality. In the reset process, it's a little different than this set aside the emotion that flows through you. It's identify a time where you've been triggered. I'd recommend that you start with a small one. And people spend $20,000 to spend 5 days with my neuroscientist to do this. This is the core of the program, and I'm giving it away in the book because the world needs this. And there's 8 steps to it. And I don't think we want to go through all 8 of them because it's going to take a meaningful amount of time, but I can do the overview.
Sure.
And if you're listening, do read the book or get the download. There's $750 of giveaways on daveasprey.com for the book, including a course on how to do this. Because if you skip steps or do them wrong, it doesn't work. So you'll just think it worked and your ego will become stronger. So the first thing you do is you figure out what is a situation that is a trigger. And then you ask yourself, what is the first time I can remember feeling that way? And if you take a couple of deep breaths and just relax, suddenly some weird image will pop into your head. I never thought about that. Well, that's from childhood, or that's from when I was, someone broke my heart the first time. Right? It's not what you think it is. So if someone cuts you off in traffic, how did you feel? You felt disrespected. What's the first time you felt disrespected? And something, okay. Run the reset process on the old time, because when you get that, it's like time travel. All the rest of the times you felt that they get erased. You remember the things that happened, you just don't remember them through an emotional lens that isn't real. And once this happens, you sit the other person across from you in a little meditation that I teach you how to envision. And then you say, you did X, something they actually did, and it made me feel Y. So it's very carefully worded.
Right.
You can't say, you were mean to me and it made me feel upset. Being mean to someone isn't actually doing something. Right. And when you do it this way, it's clear enough for your fast but dumb operating system in the body to understand. The second step that's most important is you have to re-experience the feelings you had. You can't think about feelings. You have to feel about them. So feelings are in the body. How did your stomach feel? Did your jaw clench? Was there hairs on the back of your head? And once you can turn on that feeling, I don't like that. You do it for less than 2 minutes. Then, and this is what's missing from a lot of the work in the world, you find something in the situation to be grateful for. And this can be really hard. I've worked with people who've been tortured. I've worked with people whose families have been murdered, things like that. And what? Yeah. What's one good thing that happened? Well, one of them is I'm still here. Okay. There's always something. It doesn't have to be of the same magnitude. And when you start being curious about that, it shows the body it's possible to shift from into, wait, maybe there's something good, and then to find something good. And that gratitude is the spark that lights the fire of forgiveness. And forgiveness comes from looking at this other person in your meditation across from you and seeing things from their perspective. Why did they do this? And your story may be because they hate me. If you're still stuck, you see them as a little kid and you realize they're just running the programs that they got from their mean teachers and bullies and bad parenting, and they got it from their parents. And it's just a flawed human being sitting across from you. And that what they did, but they didn't do it to you. They just did it, and that you reacted.
Yeah. You know, in Art of Living, we have something very similar. There's I don't know if you are aware of our silence retreat. And a major part of that silence retreat is to reset the emotions that we store in our biochemistry.
Beautiful.
And Gurudev does this really nice meditation where he walks you through different parts of the body where you could store different emotions and of course flip it around, right? So he mentions that with each at different energy centers in the body, there can be some negative emotions, but they can also be positive emotions.
Yes.
And when you work through them in a way very similar to yours, through the power of meditation, through the power of breathwork, you can flip it around. And you mentioned the Art of Living, that you did it for 5 years. What prompted you to do it at that time?
I'll be a little bit vulnerable on this. I heard about this in my mid-20s. I was a pretty angry person, to be honest. And I had a career that was taking off in Silicon Valley. I always worked for companies that were started by people from India. And one of our software engineers said, Dave, you should come and do this thing. And I'm like, okay. Yes. So I show up and there's robes and flowers and candles and things, which I have no issues with now. I've done way weirder things than that. But at the time I was a little judgmental and it just felt like it wasn't something I could connect with. And then 3 months later, a friend said, this Art of Living thing, they have an executive program at one of the founders of Intel's house. And I went to that and I was an executive, maybe a young one, but definitely. And it was framed in a way that could get past my ego. So thanks for doing that. and I understood this was a performance enhancement technique, and I did it, and it worked. And I started going every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. to the CEO of the company I worked for, BV Jagdish's house. And like 20 or 30 very successful entrepreneurs would drive there and, so hum. And my friend Prabhakar Sundarajan, he said, I can't explain why I do this or why it works because I'm an engineer, but it's like taking a mental shower every week.
Yeah.
Right. So I did it because it worked.
Yeah.
And part of what I'd already discovered was that if I believed my own stories, I would do things that didn't work until it would kill me. So I had already tried going to the gym 6 days a week for 90 minutes every single day on a low-fat diet. I never lost a pound. And I had all these things that were supposed to make me feel a certain way. I tried making $6 million when I was 26, and I looked at a friend, so I'll be happy when I have 10. That didn't work. Tried getting married briefly early on in my 20s. That didn't make me happy, probably the opposite. And I tried being famous. The first guy to sell anything over the internet. Before e-commerce was called e-commerce, right? And so people are saying, how would you know? I'm like, the internet was very small back then. You could actually know all of it. But
and you got featured for that, right?
I believe magazine.
Entrepreneur magazine. Yeah.
And 80 other magazines I never talk about. Yeah. So I'm like, look at me, I'm a big deal. I was happy for 10 minutes. So fame and fortune and getting married don't make you happy. And now I'm thinking, oh, and by the time I was doing Art of Living, I'd already lost the $6 million. So making money and losing money don't make you happy.
Yeah.
So like, might as well try some breathing because I got nothing to lose. And so that
Right.
was behind it, and it worked.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And, you know, we have a few minutes left here on the clock, and I would like to get your thoughts on, you know, see, in a world where like everything is being digitized, right? Like from breath, like to bliss, to like all these emotions. What's the one thing from your experience, whether it's meditating in a group or, you know, meditating by yourself, that the tech still hasn't caught up to?
Reality is provably not what we see.
Yes.
Our bodies create a very low resolution functional picture of the world. This Ghee Sutra is not in my hand. I just perceive it to be in my hand. And if we look at it, it's almost all empty space. And if we get down to it, it's just all quantum foam.
Yeah.
So this means that I can have quantum effects on you.
Yes.
And it means you can have them on me. And you probably know how to do that consciously. And I know how to do it consciously as well, right? Computers don't know how to do that yet. As a matter of fact, we can have effects on computers they can't have on us.
Yes.
We can change random number generators with our consciousness. And in fact, the guy who did that research is speaking at my biohacking conference. Computers can mimic things, but right now they don't have genuine emotions that we can prove. Humans also have the ability to collapse a possibility into reality, the observer effect.
Yeah.
And so far, computers don't have the ability to do that, which in my world is a signal of consciousness. So there's a lot missing there. And understanding our power is really important. And your job right now, if you're listening to this, become unprogrammable.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
That's why this book is necessary now.
100%.
And breathwork is how you regulate your nervous system and your biology so that you're more grounded and stable and congruent. Congruence is interstate and outer state match. And then an AI-driven ad campaign comes your way and you just go, oh, look what they're trying to do. And you go about your day. And if you didn't do that, it's going to land and it's going to take over and it's going to make you do something you didn't choose and you're going to believe you chose it.
Yeah. And when you are believing in your own personal power, when you're conscious about it, then you could choose to, let's say, get things which are useful for you, like the book.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Make
or
better
like
choices.
the Ghee Sutra.
And maybe the most precious thing is your loved ones or maybe your children. They're going to do something that would have made you mad, or maybe it even does make you mad. And you're going to have the presence of mind and character to do the right thing, right? And to not yell at them and to not be reactive. And if you are reactive, even though you didn't want that, you'll be able to forgive yourself very quickly. So you don't just sit there in a spiral of guilt and shame, because those make you programmable. If I can say anything that makes someone offended, I'm in charge of them. And it doesn't feel good for others to be in charge of you.
Yeah. And I think that's something that can make a personal breakdown into a global breakthrough. Like just a small change within our mindset that I can forgive someone, that they're not in charge of me, can turn that feeling, that icky feeling, into a big breakthrough for anybody's life.
It's kind of funny that you and I are sitting here talking about forgiveness. Most people learned forgiveness when their mother said, "Tell your brother you forgive them." Forgiveness is not a thought. It is a change of energetic and emotional state in your body. And forgiveness has nothing to do with telling someone you forgive them. Some people you shouldn't tell them. And it has nothing to do with saying that what happened was okay. Forgiveness is literally going into your operating system settings and saying, I will no longer be reactive to that. Yeah. It's the same as turning on your phone, going into settings and turning off all the alerts for the apps that are bothering you. You're just turning off the alert for that trauma.
Yeah. And if you don't forgive, then you're still punishing them, right? By making somebody feel guilty, that in itself is a big punishment, right? And it hurts us more than somebody else.
It does. In fact, I believe hating other people does harm them. It just harms you at least 10 times more.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's why I felt called to write Heavily Meditated. Biohacking is a movement that's now about 14 years old that I started. And I started it to say we can have control over our state, over our biology and our nervous systems and our consciousness. Anyone who goes down that path, maybe you're trying to lose weight or to fix a certain problem, you're going to say, I'd like to live longer than I thought I could because life is worth it now. And you're going to choose to become more conscious. It's inevitable. So biohacking is sort of bait to get young people to become longevity and conscious hackers. And it's worked beautifully. And since the very start of the movement, I've brought up art of living when I talk about breathwork. And it's listed here in Heavily Meditated as part of the story of how I've been able to learn from different lineages and this uniting idea of F words: fear, food, fertility, friend, and forgiveness. Your life, your body will do that in order, the same way that a slime mold will do it, or a tree. Trees can't run away, but they can make toxins or not make toxins based on the threat environment. It's automatic, it's very fast, and it's invisible to you, but you can train it. And wow, that means it's not your fault.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, on that powerful note, we'll thank you, Dave, for joining us today on this episode of Beyond the Known. And we thank our listeners for watching in. Make sure you get a copy of the book, Heavily Meditated. At one point, I want to ask you about this picture, but I don't know if we have time. Do we have time to hear a story from Dave about the electrodes?
There's no airbrushing on the picture. In reality, the headset on my head is from 40 years of Zen. It's a 3D printed EEG helmet that measures brain waves during meditation. The other electrodes on my body are there to look cool.
Well, thank you. Hey, a quick pause. If you're listening to this and thinking, I need more peace in my day, more clarity in my mind, then I'll really encourage you to check out The Art of Living. The Art of Living offers a technique called Sky Breath Meditation, used by CEOs, pro athletes, and high performers around the world to recharge their energy, clear that mental fog, and reset the nervous system in minutes. They offer programs both online and in person. It is science-backed and it works. Head to artofliving.org to learn more.